Hi there, this is Josh Council again for FX Warehouse. We're going to be doing another tutorial today. We're going to be doing Shrek, and this is a makeup that would be great for something like Shrek the Musical. We'll be going through all of the bits and pieces that we're going to be using in just a moment. Before we start though, I just wanted to give a word of recommendation for FX Warehouse. They have a great selection of makeup, they're very fast shipping, they keep a lot of product in stock, so it means that you're able to get it when you need it. I recommend them to all of my students, I recommend them to my friends, I use them myself, and I recommend them to you as a wonderful resource for anything to do with FX makeup. So without further ado, let's get into the tutorial. So before we start, we're just going to go through everything that we've got here that we're going to be using for the makeup. And there is a little bit of preparation that we need to put in before we actually start our makeup application. So we've got our cowl here, which is just as it comes. We're going to need to do some fitting work and trimming and painting on that before we start. We have our prosthetic. This actually glues on over the front of the cowl to create the Shrek face. We have a thing of alcohol. I like to soak my glue brush in that so that it softens the bristles. I'm going to be doing a little bit with some airbrush today. You don't have to use an airbrush if you don't have one. You can use grease paint to do any of the things that we do today. I like the airbrush. It has a much softer look to the makeup. You can purchase all of your airbrush stuff from FX Warehouse. All of the products that you see here can be purchased at FX Warehouse, and including the wax palettes, they sell those. I've got 2 orange stipple sponges. They come in kind of in a block, so you have to actually round them off yourself. That's to avoid any hard edges from the edge of the sponge. We've got some foam latex wedges, some Q-tips, palette knife. This is just some baby powder. If you're wanting to use something a little nicer like a setting powder, you're more than welcome to. We've got some prosaide cream. 2 palettes. I like using 2. One so I can have some glue and some PAX and other stuff on it, and the other one just for makeup. We have our Ogre Green PAX color. We have prosaide adhesive. Any acrylic emulsion adhesive will do. You can also use Telesis, which is a silicone-based adhesive. We have some different airbrush paints. These are alcohol-based liquids that you can run through an airbrush. We have our Super Solve and the prosaide remover that we can use either one for the removal. You don't necessarily need to get anything quite this large. This is just what I keep in stock myself. And we've got a hairdryer, and I think that's about it. I think we're ready to, and some crepe hair for the eyebrows. And we're going to need to prep that before we start as well. So let's get started on the prepping. Okay, so with the crepe hair, when you buy it, it comes in this kind of little braid. It's got these little ropes sort of going through it. So what we want to do is we want to kind of just remove those and stretch it out. Now, probably want to just trim these right down near as far down as you can. Then you can pull them out, then we can unravel some more. I don't think we'll need quite that much. And if we use it just like this, what happens is when we pull it off, it goes really kind of frizzy. And that's not really the look that we want. That's great if we're wanting to do certain types of hair, if we want that particular look. But if we're wanting something straight, then we need to prepare it before we actually do our application. There's a few different ways you can do it. I know some people, they'll wet it and iron it. Other people will steam it. The fastest way that I know to do it, and the easiest way, is I just get a thing of water or under the tap, just dunk it in there so that it's wet. I find something hard, I just wrap it around it like that, and then I just leave it overnight. And when I come in the next day, I remove it, and it's like this. So it's all dry, it's nice and straight, and is really nice to work with. So that's kind of the easiest way that I have found to do it, without having steamers and any other sort of bits and pieces. So we've got our hair that I've already pre-prepped. It's like one of those cooking shows. And we don't need the water anymore. Okay, the other preparation that we need to do is with the cowl. Now, a lot of people have been saying that these are very, very tight, and they're designed to be fairly tight because we need to trim out around the neck a little bit. I've just got to remove it from this styrofoam head without breaking the head. Okay. So, it'll come with a small opening. Now, this isn't the opening that you're going to be using for the makeup. This is just an opening so that if the person can get their face in it, then you'll be able to trim it. You don't want to trim it too far off the person's face, because if you go out further than what the prosthetic covers, then you're going to have a hard time. You're going to have a gap, and it's going to look weird, and you're not going to be happy with it. So let's go over to our model, and we'll get him to try it on. And if it doesn't fit, we'll need to trim out a little bit under here. And I'll show you how to do all of that and prep it. So, okay, so here we have Warren. He's going to be our model for us today. I'm going to get you to see, let me trim that out firstly a little bit under the chin, because I know that we're going to need to do that a little bit. So I'm just going to take it down here. Now, the further down you go, the easier it's going to be to put this on. I'm a pretty big guy. I'm 6'3", and I weigh about 230 pounds. And I can get this on my head no problem. Of course, I don't have the burden of hair, but it does fit. And unless somebody's got quite a thick neck, then you might have to try some other things. But what you really want to do is to avoid having to cut the front down here, because the prosthetic has a little bit of a neck on it, which will give you all the way. You can cut it down as far as you need to down here, but you want to keep that sort of seamless look to it, without having to have these hard lines coming down out of the prosthetic. What I would probably do, if you just cannot get it on, I would possibly put a little split just in the back of the neck here, and then do a little circle so it looks like a little lollipop. And what the circle will do is it's going to stop it from ripping. So, and then you can maybe put some kind of elastic or something in the back to hold it closed. But I would rather have a little split here than to have these two ugly lines here. So that would be my recommendation. You can try and just whiz that onto your head. Okay, that went on fairly easily. Now you can see that that's kind of mush in his face. What we're going to do is we're going to mark on there so that we know where his face is. I'm going to just bring that down under here, up and over the eyebrows. I am going to just give him a little bit extra playroom down under the neck here. You always want to make sure that you check with your prosthetic to make sure it's going to, yeah, we've got plenty of work room around that whole line. You want to leave at least an inch if you can have it of overlap where we can glue the prosthetic on. So you can see that's going to give us quite a bit of room. These cowls are not designed to blend into the skin. They're designed for the prosthetic to sit over them and to blend seamlessly into the cowl. So if you're just going to have this hard line here, it's going to look very, very weird. So that's why we have this that sits over the top. It's going to create the Shrek face for us. So now that we've done that, in fact, I've got a little bit more room, so I'm going to be a little nicer and maybe just give him just that little bit extra down under there as well. Okay, we whiz that off. And then we just trim it out according to the mark, and then that is custom cut for that particular actor. Now when you're cutting it, try to avoid any little nicks or bits and pieces, because as it stretches, they can tear there. So you want to keep it nice and even, a nice even smooth line all the way around. Try getting that on now. That should be much, much easier. Is that easier?
Definitely.
More comfortable?
Yeah, I can. This isn't squished.
Okay. So he now can move his eyebrows, and he can do all of that stuff, which can, read through the prosthetic. And then we'll just try the prosthetic on again. You can see that there's nothing cutting in on the sides of the eyes like there was before. This is all covered under here, that's fine. And I think we're in pretty good shape to start gluing some stuff on to the palette. And I'm just going to run just a little bit of glue just along the inside here. We don't have to glue this whole thing to the face. That's going to be a nightmare for them to try and remove it. So we just want to keep it in place. We don't want it to move around and cause problems. If we don't glue this down and it shifts, it's going to wrinkle the prosthetic in a weird way. So we want to make sure that this is just going to stay in place where we put it. So. You know, it's really important when you're doing your removal at the end of the show or at the end of the whatever it is that you're going to be using this particular makeup for, that only alcohol is used on the cowl. If you're going to be reusing it and needing to glue more stuff on, if you're using Super Solve or whatever, it's going to soak into it and it'll stop it from bonding to it. So you want to remove right down to the edge here with alcohol, and then remove this little bit we put on with alcohol, then pull this off and then remove the face with the Super Solve or the Skin Safe remover. So that's fairly important to remember. So we've got two choices at this point. We can sit and we can PAX all of this out, we can paint this and then do the face, or we can do it all at once. If I was going to be doing it over and over and over again, say for a show, I would pre-paint this, I would pre-paint the face as much as I possibly could so that it really cuts down on the time. But for this, because I want to show you how to paint the whole thing, I'm going to glue everything together, I'm going to blend my edges, and then we're going to paint it all in one sitting. So we got this here. Make sure it's all going to fit well, which I believe it will. And now what we need to do is we need to prep our piece. If you look here, you can see that there's a very, very fine membrane-like edge all the way around. If you look in this eye here, you can see there's a little excess there that we don't necessarily want. So we just want to do what's called plucking the edge and just remove any excess. You don't want to go past into you know, the thicker part of the foam, because then that's going to give you a very, very ugly and thick edge. But you want to make sure that you don't have all this flappy stuff up in his eye, because that's also going to suck for him. And if you have a lot of that stuff, sometimes it'll get wrinkly and look weird, and you won't get the blend that you want. So, especially in the corners of the eye. Okay, so we got that. Sometimes there might be a membrane across the nostrils here. Make sure that you pluck those out so that they can breathe. Breathing is always a good thing. And just, again, we've got little excess membrane hanging on there. I think we're fairly good around the edge there. Don't think there's too much excess around there. A little bit there. So just kind of go your way around and make sure that everything looks good. Okay, I think we're in good shape. So the first thing we need to do is we're going to anchor the prosthetic onto the face. And the way that I normally do that is I find a very central location. In this case, it's going to be the nose area. And I put a layer of glue on there. Sometimes, if you watched any of our other tutorials, you'll see that I'll put it on and then put some powder around it. Because this isn't blending into the skin or into the face, it really isn't going to matter. So, just going to get that nose in place. You breathe okay?
Yeah.
Okay, make sure it's all in the right place and press down on it. Okay. Okay, so now we're anchored in place. Then we just sort of peel it down to where the glue is. We're gonna just add. Now for something like this, I don't ever glue over the eyebrows. This piece is big enough that you don't need to. If it's really small on the eyebrow or really close to it, you're gonna have to. But if you can avoid putting glue in the actor's eyebrow, they will love you for it. especially if it's somebody who has done a lot of prosthetic work before and have had to scrape the glue out of their eyebrows in the past. They will love you forever if you don't have to put them through that ordeal. So just don't open your eyes until I powder, because you don't want to glue your eyes open. So it's important to communicate with your actor. Make sure that they're knowing when to not open their eyes, when to, open them. So if they open their eyes and there's glue on their eyelids, it can actually glue the eyelids open, which is never really a good look for anyone, and it's certainly not comfortable. Okay, peel this back here. And I'm not really interested in working my edge right at the moment. I'm just trying to get the bulk of it down. So now I'm just going to go around and get some glue in underneath. If you sort of push down like that, you'll see that lifts the edge up a little bit. Just get some glue in there. And then it's just a matter of actually going this way across the edge. Never go along the edge. That'll cause it to wrinkle and do these weird little fold things. So you always go out across the edge. Also going to make sure that we pull this glue in around the eyes. If ever the piece is sticky like that and you need to push down on it, get just a little touch of baby powder on your finger, and you'll be able to push it down without having it stick to your finger. That's a really helpful little tip, because nothing worse than going to push something down and then it sticks to your finger and you do this and it all rips up and looks awful, and can also injure their skin. So you want to make sure that that's powder his eyelid there. Can you open your eye? You okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Okay, close it again. Some people like to use Q-tips to apply the glue. I find that a brush does a much more even and thin coat. And I find that the better the coat of glue underneath the prosthetic, the less it will come up. It actually tends to stick down a little better and last longer if you have a better quality coat of glue, if it's a little more even and nice like that. So that's why I like to use a brush. Be really careful not to glue their eyelashes together. If you do end up gluing their eyelashes down a little bit, you can just sort of go in there and just sort of loosen it up with your fingers so that they're not struggling trying to do it. And you'll probably be able to notice it before they do. And if you can do that beforehand, they'll never know that it was glued. So a little tip there to save them a little bit of panic, because some people don't really like having that experience. So, okay, so. Most prosthetic glues are actual contact adhesive, so they're designed to be put on both halves, dry, and then pressed together. You can kind of get away with a little bit what we're doing just by applying it and then pressing it down, but just be aware that it may not stick really well until it's actually dried. So if it starts to like pull away a little bit, You can get your hairdryer, dry it, and then it's actually most sticky. Prosaide is most sticky once it's dried. And oh, we've got a rolled edge up there. Yeah, that's really ugly. I'll have to come back and fix that in a minute. Just get everything glued down as evenly and nicely as we can, and then we'll come back in and we'll fix all of the issues with our edge. Okay, so the way that we fix that edge, we get a Q-tip and we've got some alcohol on it. And if you're doing it near the eye, you want to make sure it's not flooded with alcohol, because you don't want it running down into their eye and that there is fumes and stuff. So, and then basically what we do is we just wet it down and we just roll out any of those little wrinkles. The alcohol will deactivate the glue temporarily and allow us to reposition it, and then as it evaporates off, the glue is reactivated and it'll hold it back in place. So it's really just a matter of, you know, being diligent. Just turn your head this way a little bit. See, there's quite a few little wrinkles here. So we're just trying to get rid of those. There's a folded under edge here. Now you got to flood that pretty well, and then you can get this underneath and you spin the Q-tip and it actually unrolls it. Although that looks like it's gonna remove, so. See, that's much nicer now. And you just basically do that all the way around, just making sure that all your edge is really nice. If you have any bits and pieces, like this little bit up here, it's not a fantastic blend. I'm going to use a little bit of prosaide cream, just skim that in there so it fills that little bit. I know some people who use prosaide cream as a every time thing. On the whole edge, they skim the whole edge every time. If your prosthetic is made right, you shouldn't need to do that. It should be something that if you run into an issue, it's a tool that you can use to put in there to fix it, but you really don't want to try doing that every single time, especially with a cowl that you're going to be reusing. You'll get this big ugly build-up all around the edge. It'll be lumpy and hard, and it's horrible to try and remove, and it will look bad. So you want to try and avoid the prosaide cream as much as possible, but if you need it for, like, just for this little bit here, you know, you certainly can just skim a little bit in there, and that's not going to really hurt anything. Now we've got this folded edge up here, and it's just the same thing. We just basically flood it with some alcohol, get it under there, roll it back out again. There we go. This one's pretty hideous. So I think it's going to be easier if I just basically remove that. The alcohol will break down the foam latex edge a little bit and allow you just to tear away some of it, which is always an option. Sometimes it leaves a thicker edge than you want, but sometimes just a thicker, neat edge is better than a thin, folded up, crinkled edge. Okay, so now we're going to apply, just edit that bit out. So we're going to do our prosaide cream. And just going to get a little bit on my palette knife here. And we're going to go over to here to this spot that needs it, and we're just going to skim just a tiny bit there. And it's kind of like a drywall mud, like a spack filler for prosthetic, and it just helps blend stuff in a little bit. And then give it a dry. It doesn't have to dry all the way. Once the coating is dry, we can PAX over it, and the rest will dry as it goes. But you want to make sure that it's dry enough that it's not going to be disturbed if we put some product on top. You can notice I'm shielding his eyes from the hot air. All of this is fine. There's no really exposed skin, so you're not going to cause problems. But I don't like blowing the hot air in his eye, so I'm just... You can see how it's starting to go clear as it dries. That's an indication that it is getting dry. I'm just going to take a little powder and just powder over that now. And you can see that that's pretty much fixed. And I'm just going to powder over the edge here to make sure that everything is nice and glued down and looking right. Now we're going to apply our zombie green, ogre green. Now we're going to apply our ogre green PAX paint. And so put on a decent amount. And then you can either use one of these particular little wedge things to put it on. This one looks like it's going to probably take a couple of coats to get it nice and strong color. So I'm just going to come back once I've done a second coat, and I'll meet back with you then. When you get to the nose, it's really important to do the top of the nose before you do the bottom of the nose. If you PAX all around here and it's sticky, and then you go to do this, you're going to push this down into it and it's going to stick to it. So always do the top parts first. Now for around the eyes, we want to use something small. We never want to PAX right up to the eyes because it's hard to get the PAX off, and you don't really want to use those sorts of solvents right around the eyes. So I normally don't take this off the foam, especially, you know, I might, if it's under the eye down here, I might do just a little overlap, but normally if it's right up close, I'll just take it where it's on the foam, and then we'll just go in with some grease paint and blend off the rest of that. Now if you are going to pre-paint your pieces with the PAX, which is what I recommend, you probably want to leave just maybe a 1/4 inch around the very, very edge where the blending edge is. That way when you glue it on, all you need to do is just go boom, 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 blend off, and you're good to go. With a bit of practice, you should be able to get this whole application down to probably 20 to 30 minutes tops. So it always helps. Any little step you can do beforehand, before they get into the chair, really, really helps to make the makeup go more smoothly for the actor. Okay, so now I'm going to go in and do a little bit of shading with the airbrush. I've mixed up a dark green with just a little bit of a brown color, so it's got a little bit of an olivey tone to it. You can use pretty much any airbrush paint. I prefer alcohol based. You can use water based. There's really not going to be sweating through the prosthetic all the way through, so it's not going to affect it either way. So they have a variety of different brands over at FX Warehouse that you can use, and they're all fine. So I'm just going to put a little bit of this in here. Now, anyone who's interested in what airbrush I'm using, this is an Iwata Revolution. It is a really good airbrush. It's one of the lower range of the Iwatas, but I like them a lot, and they're very affordable. And the FX Warehouse actually has really good prices on their Revolutions. They're probably the cheapest prices on those that I've found. So it's really good to kind of go look into that if you're interested in an airbrush. Okay, so I'm just going to shade in some of these things. Now, it's really important here, when we're doing the nasolabial fold, if I left it like that, it kind of makes him look old rather than just shaded. So when you do that, you want to kind of bring the shadow out into the apple of the cheek a little bit, and then it looks just like more of a shadow rather than just an old age type thing. I'm just basically hitting in some of the points here just to bring out the sculpt a little bit, give him a little bit of a turn your head, give him like a bit of a shadow along here. Now, you don't have to use an airbrush for this. You can do anything we're doing now, you can do with grease paint. I like the airbrush. It's fast, it's hygienic, it has a really nice soft edge to it. But you can do it with a brush. If you're skilled with grease paint and you know how to blend well, you can do all of this with grease paint. So at this point, I'm going to go in with some grease paint and do the eyes. And this particular grease paint is a rubber mask grease, which means that it has a castor oil base as opposed to a regular cosmetic oil base, so it doesn't actually affect the foam latex composition of the foam latex. Okay, I'm going to need you to look up at the ceiling for me, please, sir. Okay. Close. Oh, look up, sorry. Just going to powder that to set it. Anytime you use grease paint, you always want to powder it after you've applied it so that it doesn't smudge or make a mess. Okay, now put your head down. He has kind of these ogre spots on the top of his head, which are just kind of a random kind of pattern. You can bring them down a little bit if you like. They kind of cluster mostly on the top and a little bit down the back. Now I'm going to take a little bit of this, it's called Natural One, it's a Skin Illustrator liquid. I just want kind of a flesh tone color because Shrek has kind of these weird kind of flesh tone highlights. So I just want to bring that out a little bit. Make sure you don't just do it on the face, otherwise it's going to not really match. Next up, I'm going to take just a cheap chip brush, usually about $1 from the hardware store. I'm just going to trim that down so it's sort of shorter and bristlier. And what we're going to do is we're going to take some of this green airbrush paint. I'm going to put it on a palette and I'm going to soak my brush in it. And then with that, we're going to just add some spattery kind of texture. If it goes on a little strong, you can kind of pat it down so it kind of softens a little bit. But this is just to give like a skin texture to it, so it doesn't look quite so soft and lindy. If you want to add a little alcohol to it to make it a little washier, that works pretty well as well. Okay, now the next part that we need to do is Shrek has kind of these pinky coloured lips. So I'm just going to use some grease paint. I'm just going to mix up a colour that's kind of a pinky kind of colour. So I'm going to use this particular colour here. And I don't want it to be really feminine, so just open. So I'm going to just kind of add it in a little bit so that it's a little bit there, but I don't want to have necessarily a hard lip line because then that will end up making it look a little girly. So I'm just kind of almost doing like a fade. And I'm going to take it just a little bit darker right on the inside. I'm also going to take a little brown and I'm going to put it blend in just right around the eyes just to help bring the eyes out a little bit. Okay. Close. Okay, next and lastly, we have to do eyebrows. So we go back to where we were before with our crepe hair, and I'm going to give you a quick lesson in how to lay hair. Now you're welcome to paint them on if you like. You can just paint them on and be done with it. I think it looks a little nicer if they're actually laid on there and it's real hair, especially since he has kind of bushy eyebrows. So, okay, his eyebrows kind of start in here and then come up on this kind of curve up on top of this bump here. Now we're going to take our crepe hair, we're going to separate it like this, then we're going to pull off a chunk. Now it's really important when laying hair, the most important thing is a lot of people when they lay it, they just press it in like this. But hair does not grow sideways, it grows out from the skin. So what we're wanting to do is we cut this to the angle that we want the hair to grow out of the skin at. So if we want it to grow out on an angle like this, then we cut it this way. so that when we lay it into the glue, it actually appears to be growing out that way. Okay. And then we trim it down to the shape and size that we want. And there you have it. Shrek is ready for his big entrance on stage, or at least to go to wardrobe and get his costume on. But yeah, I think that looks pretty good. So thank you for joining us. Don't forget to go past FX Warehouse website, which is fxwarehouse, one word, .net. You can be able to purchase any of the things you've seen on the tutorial today, prosthetics, any of the makeup, palettes, any of that stuff, airbrushes, they have it all. And don't forget to keep checking the feed. We'll have some more tutorials up here before you know it. Bye.